This person died in 2020 at age 80.
Walter Matthau.
No, but great guess. He ran a leg with the Olympic torch in advance of the 1996 Games in Atlanta.
All I want to say is Joan Rivers, and I know it's not Joan Rivers.
He appeared frequently as himself in movies, including in Charlie's Angels in 2000 and on The Colbert Report.
Jim Brown?
Not Jim Brown. He was an authoritative and unflappable fixture for millions of Americans. He had impeccable diction.
I have no idea.
Johnny Carson?
Not Johnny Carson. He won 6 Emmys and a Lifetime Achievement Award.
I'm thinking like a Dan Rather type, but he's still alive.
He had a friendly rivalry with Pat Sajak.
Oh, Bob Barker.
Not Bob Barker.
No!
He hosted Jeopardy for a record-setting 37 years.
Alex Trebek.
Today's dead celebrity is Alex Trebek.
Answer there, the first of the daily doubles, and you are now in the lead.
Oh, good. I love you. What does he do?
Till next time, folks. So long.
Welcome to Famous and Gravy. I'm Michael Osborne.
My name is Amit Kapoor.
And on this show, we go through a series of categories about multiple aspects of a famous person's life. We want to figure out the things in life that we would actually desire and ultimately answer a big question. Would I want that life? Today, Alex Trebek died 2020, age 80. Category 1, grading the first line of their obituary. Quick programming note on this. The New York Times deviated from format. So I had to look around, and the only one I could find that approximated it was the Washington Post.
It's devastating.
I know. I was very disappointed. Anyway, Alex Trebek, who became known to generations of television viewers as the quintessential Quizmaster, bringing an air of bookish politis to the garish coliseum of game shows as the longtime host of Jeopardy, died November 8th at his home in Los Angeles. He was 80.
What was the word after bookish?
Politis? Politis? It's polite with SSE after that. So
Politis.
Politis. Isn't that what I said?
I have no idea how to pronounce it. What is garish?
So bookish politis to the garish coliseum of game shows. So I think what they're saying is most other game shows are garish, but Jeopardy separates itself out.
Yes.
Actually, that's my main criticism of this obituary is that, like, why are you taking jabs at other game shows?
I think that has everything to do with the long run of Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And has everything to do with Alex's appeal, I think.
Yeah.
I read a word in one of the other obituaries that Jeopardy was a show without histrionics. It basically just means hoopla and fanfare.
Yeah.
I think that was good of the Washington Post to do that.
I guess so. I don't know. I mean, it's not just longevity. It's actually reputation that distinguishes Jeopardy. You know, if you look at Wheel of Fortune or if you look at Price is Right, and those are, I think, the nearest comparisons in terms of popularity. They're not as intellectual. They're not as smart, right?
Yeah, but it's the
I
lack.
wouldn't call
it's the
them
lack
garish,
of
though.
garishness.
It's the lack of garishness.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess.
And what did they use at the beginning? Quizmaster?
Quintessential Quizmaster.
Which is true, and I didn't know a lot about that until researching for this episode. How much of Trebek's career pre-Jeopardy was actually in the quiz category.
That's right.
What's it missing other than being in the New York Times?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure it's missing a whole hell of a lot, actually. There's not other things that we know him for.
Yeah.
Well, I hate that I don't know this word politis. It makes me feel stupid.
You don't know how to pronounce it, but you're able to define it. Like if it were an SAT word, you take the Latin origin.
How to say, I actually did do this the other day. How to say
it's already been Googled?
Yeah, how to say politis. Here it is.
Is that can we use that phrase? ABG, already been Googled?
Politis.
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 Politas.
Why does yours have such a robot voice?
That's YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah.
It rhymes with elitist.
Politas. Oh, interesting. Does that change your...
when I finally pursue freestyle rapping, as I've intended to do for a while, I have a word that can rhyme with elitist.
This comes up. Politas. So I have my score. I'm going to give it an 8, and it's because this word bothers me.
We just don't know enough about the Washington Post style. That's why I just don't even feel right grading it. It's like a substitute teacher.
I agree, but, the class is in, and we still have to take the test. So what are you giving it?
It was comprehensive. Absence of Canadian is a problem. Lots of adjectives, some that we didn't know.
Right.
Which is very fitting for the show that he represented. So I'm going to go 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it's these get 7 and 8 with an asterisk.
Normally we're much more enthusiastic. We're like, damn right, I'm going to give it a 7.
It's not that I even want to necessarily promote the New York Times for any reason whatsoever. I just have become very habituated to their first line of the obituary. And you're absolutely right. I don't know how to compare this with other Washington Post first lines of their obituaries.
I think that's the thing. You started us out with a disappointment. You should start with the good news first.
I apologize. Yeah, okay. So,
and then tell me later.
You know what? I'm going to
tell me afterwards that this was actually the Washington Post.
Yeah, but that would have been deceptive. I'm going to read you what the New York Times says, so just you're clear.
Okay.
There's the headline, Alex Trebek, longtime host of Jeopardy, dies at 80. And then the first line is, at a restaurant several years ago, a stranger went up to Alex Trebek, the longtime host of Jeopardy, and, as strangers often did, tried to stump him. Okay, it's a nice story, but God damn it, I want the first line of the obituary from the New York Times.
Yeah, 8 and 7.
8 and 7.
Let's move on.
Category 2, 5 things I love about you. Here, Amit and I work together to come up with 5 reasons why we're talking about this person and why we might love them. I bet you got a lot.
I do got a lot. You can go first, though.
All right, I'll lead with the strongest thing I got. Curiosity, man. Both a promoter of it and somebody who embodied it. As a life quality, I could not think of anything more admirable.
Yeah.
To me, it's what life is all about. Being interested in things and people and different subjects and different knowledge domains. To be a curious individual is to be virtuous. So
it's a very Buddhist thing.
Is it?
A very mindful thing to approach things with curiosity.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Not with attachment.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is he was both a curious individual and he promoted the idea of curiosity.
Correct.
So it's not only a desirable quality in a person, but he's promoting this virtuous quality to the world.
Exactly. He's all about it.
Good one.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go with focus. When you read the stories about a lot of former contestants and former champions, one of the things they said most frequently that they were most impressed by him was that he paid attention. So he listened to every detail of what they said off camera. And ever he talked to people, there was no question whether he was listening or not. I will also just say the work ethic that accompanied the way he approached Jeopardy. So he read every single clue prior to the start of the show to make sure that A, he could pronounce everything and it could roll off the tongue.
Yeah.
And secondly, he also wanted to make sure that nothing was too difficult.
Yeah.
He recorded 8,000-something shows, and he read every single clue in advance.
I like that one. Good one. Shall I take number 3?
Yeah.
He cursed a lot.
I saw that.
If you can, there's some really great hot mic outtakes on the internet.
So keep watching Jeopardy 24 hours a day and call this number. You dumb son of a bitch. You don't watch it 24 hours a day. There's a daily cash prize of $1,000 and fuck no shit. Call now and play Phone Jeopardy. Fuck 'em.
Man, I love hearing him curse because he's so straight-laced. Another thing I have on here that I don't think I'm going to nominate for the 5 things is his love of suits. The man is incredibly well-dressed.
Right.
And I just love hearing F-bombs drop from somebody who seems straight-laced and presents so well.
Because of the contradiction?
Because of the contradiction, but I like that there's a hidden expressiveness about him, right? You feel, you get this sense from the man that there's more going on and that he's kind of containing it. I curse quite a bit, and I like to break the ice with people. I'm usually
it's a litmus test.
Yeah, when I meet a
coolness.
stranger. No, I don't know if it's coolness exactly. I guess
it's disarming also.
But I feel like it normalizes things, right? So I am, with every stranger I meet, I'm kind of waiting to can I curse yet? To just see if it's okay. And I just love that Alex Trebek was known for this behind the scenes.
Yeah. I've got a story about that. When I went to freshman orientation for college, I went actually with my friend Patrick, who was one of my high school friends. And during this orientation, as we're meeting new people for the first time, you'd sit down at lunch with them. And we had kind of come up with it as a test of how these people react if we just say like, hey, do you like the fucking okra? And it was like our way to filter out if we can be friends with these people.
So, yeah, I mean,
the sad ending is we didn't really make any friends.
but maybe that's for the best. I mean, I think it should be a filtering test. You know, I think it signals to somebody that you're comfortable with them when you curse. Maybe it was because it was prohibited when I was a kid. And, you know, when I finally got to watch PG-13 and R movies and hear people say fuck all the time or whatever.
Yeah, but you like it on Alex because he is so composed, but it's giving this reality to him, but also a confidence.
Yes.
I'd like to point out something. You said the suits, you know, as part of this seemingly contradiction, but saw him do a throwback to Roger Moore. Is Alex Trebek dapper?
Yes.
I think so too.
Yeah. We've had at least 2 dapper dead celebrities on
pre and
Famous
post mustache.
That's right. Great call.
Okay.
What do you got for number 4?
Work schedule. They filmed, I think, 10 shows of Jeopardy in 2 days. It was like every Tuesday or Wednesday, he goes in, works from like 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. They fire off 5 shows. The winner goes back, changes clothes, and they keep recording.
Yeah.
But that's it. 2-day work week.
Yeah.
He had the rest of, I'm sure there's lots of additional time to do, but I idealize that. I mean, I think this 5-day work week is nonsense. And I like that Alex figured this out.
Yeah, fuck Tim Ferriss with his 4-day bullshit. Let's cut that in half.
Yeah, I mean, think about family time, kids time. I have so many problems with the 5-day work week. It just doesn't make any sense to me why it's 5/7 of our life, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I love that Alex did it this way.
Yeah, I agree. Did you catch what he did for breakfast?
He said like Diet Coke and Reese's Pieces or something.
Diet Coke and a candy bar.
Yeah.
I thought that when you were saying workday, you were also speaking to workday routine.
Because he does not look like at all the type of person that would drink cola and candy for breakfast.
And did not exercise too, but we'll talk more about that, I think. So am I taking 5?
Yep.
I have committed stepdad. So he had 2 marriages. We'll get to that later. And he had a stepdaughter, but he developed a real genuine relationship with his adopted stepdaughter. He actually adopted her at age 6, first of all, but brought her into the family. And the reason I have this is because I've met a handful of stepdads over the years. That is a thankless job. Most stepdads, they try and step in. They realize they're not the biological guy, but they still have all this expectation and roles. And I think it's just hard. I think it's really thankless. And he, from what I could see, performed it really, really well. His stepdaughter ended up actually working on Jeopardy as a producer at times.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that great? I mean, she was involved in the production. I think I saw her listed as a producer. I know she worked on the crew. So I think it's got to be called out.
I like that a lot. You know, what pop culture has like really done terrible things with the idea of step-parents and stepchildren.
Example.
I can't think of a movie, but just think of the idea of like this awful phrase of like redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
Or wicked stepmother. You just assume that it's a bad relationship, that one side is either the child or the parent or both are bad, or that they essentially hate each other for some reason. I love this correction of Alex Trebek because, I mean, there's so much of that, right? We talk about our love and marriage category, right? And we've clearly unearthed that a lot of people that we've talked about have children from multiple marriages. And so it's a fact in modern day America. It just is that a lot of people will have step relationships.
And I think you have to go 150% to like assert yourself into a step role. You know what I mean?
And it's an easy excuse, I think.
I don't think we talk about it that much either.
No, I don't think so. That's why I like that you brought it up, because it's an easy excuse to have conditional love, right? A parent-child we assume it's going to be unconditional love.
Yeah.
A step relationship, we kind of assume it's conditional. But what you're saying about Alex Trebek is that he had unconditional love.
That's right. So is that our 5?
That's our 5.
So, okay, let's review real quick. I said curiosity. You said focus. Then I said cursed a lot. You said work week. And I said committed stepdad. That's 5. Before we move on, I got to throw something in here. I can tell just the way we're talking right now, like there's a lot to love about this guy. We even had so much stuff we didn't even cram it all in. I was listening to a podcast recently of somebody talking about Alex Trebek around the time of his death, and they led with, he's got a 100% approval rating. I had a friend yesterday who I said, we're going to do an Alex Trebek on Famous and Gravy tomorrow. He goes, fuck that guy. It's the first time I ever heard anybody say that. So I almost feel like you have to make the case a little bit for why we shouldn't love this man. And I don't know where else to do it in our show.
Let's take a stab at it.
I think his case was that there's a smugness.
You'll learn from Corneille and La Rochefoucauld if you visit Madame de Rambouillet's 17th century one of these gatherings. Jan.
What is a salon?
Salon.
What is salon?
Salon. You are au courant. Voila.
Yeah, it's the unshakability, the unflappability that you talked about.
Yeah.
That rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
You would also hear him at times almost have a slightly condescending demeanor on the show, right? You would hear him correct somebody and be like, no, you didn't get that, you dumb shit.
Yes.
Like the subtext of it.
Which was all the parodies of him were exactly that, of like people like blowing up because they just can't stand his smugness.
Yeah. So I guess I want to throw a little bit of water on how much we love this guy. Because he, I think, has right now, his reputation and his approval rating really couldn't be higher, even 2 years after his death.
Yeah, but he certainly had his detractors. I mean, this personality he has is really nice as a host that we view on TV.
Yeah.
But if you imagine that on like a coworker, that could really
probably drive me
obnoxious.
crazy. Yeah, no, it's a good it's a good reminder that the experience of someone on television is very different than the experience of someone in real life, in person. Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
All right, category 3, Malkovich. This category is named after the movie Being John Malkovich, in which people take a little door and enter into John Malkovich's mind, and they can have a seat right behind John Malkovich's eyes.
Malkovich.
What do you got here?
I have what I call being Santa Claus. I just made up that phrase, but this is what it is. And it happened a few times, but if I need to just tell it in the form of one story, I can. And this is from one of the articles I was reading. I think this was after Trebek died. They interviewed a bunch of former contestants and specifically former champions. Mm-hmm. So there are moments in Jeopardy where somebody gives an answer, but it's not quite enough, right? But it's not clearly wrong. It's just kind of in this gray area.
Does he not say, let's ask the judges? Isn't this a moment where you say, let's ask the judges?
No, there's another instance that I still think the judges are speaking into his ear and saying we may be able to allow this, but he doesn't overtly say, let's ask the judges.
I see.
So what he does is somebody gives an answer that's partially incomplete or partially complete, and it just needs a little more tuning on it in order to be right. So the way Alex Trebek delivered that, it was gift-giving. He looks at you like he has so much confidence in you, and he gives you a little bit of a hint towards what else you need to say.
But in his tonality or in his voice or something?
They said he kind of does it in his look.
Interesting.
So I guess maybe there is a slight intonation change. But the example I read, so this was from somebody who he said he almost missed on the clue. The clue that he received is, it's the accident that got 78-year-old Texas lawyer Harry Whittington into political news in 2006.
Okay.
And the contestant said, what is getting shot in the face? And Alex gestured for more. So he did like a hand roll, or he raised his eyes to kind of indicate you need to give a little more. And the contestant then said, by Dick Cheney. And then that was the correct answer.
Wow.
So I would love to be in that seat where you want to look at somebody and you say, okay, you're just a little closer to winning and a little closer to potentially money. And he just like sends this Jedi mind force out and tries to like telepathically tell them in his face without any words, you've got the answer on the tip of your tongue. And if I look at you and smile at you and give you a little more confidence, it's going to spill out.
That's great. I mean, it's direction in a sense, but it's so subtle. It's in body language.
It's energy transfer too, depending on what you believe in. I mean, it is a powerful force by looking at somebody, emoting in a certain way with your face and letting that little bit spill out.
And so this is a Malkovich moment because you not only want to see what's going on behind the eyes of the man who's able to do that, but like the whole experience of the body of being able to
so
do
I want
that?
to see behind the man, which is
behind the mind, really.
behind the mind of saying, okay, it's time to be generous.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the actions that go into it, where you're shaping your face, you're shaping your eyes.
You're summing up the energy.
Maybe mouthing. Yeah. You're going for the eye contact. You look at him, you see the light bulb go off. They drop the answer. And then there's just
dissipation.
Yeah. I mean, there's silent applause everywhere. But yeah, all that occurs in 3 seconds. And I think that'd be great to have a front row seat too.
It's a great one. Yeah. All right. My Malkovich moment?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with a kind of simple one. When Alex Trebek was still working at Canada at the CBC, Canadian Broadcast Corporation, he had to announce that Kennedy had been shot and killed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was on air, and he was the guy who had to deliver that message. And I just think that'd be interesting. Like, what a moment. I think he's Canadian, so he's got a different relationship with what this means, but actually, like, be a broadcaster in that moment.
What do you think it's like?
That's a great question. It's actually not so different than yours in a way. I feel like that is a moment of empowerment. You have to imagine that you're connecting with a much larger audience in that moment. But I also just found it an interesting bit of trivia. What did it feel like? That's a great question. As disorienting, as scary as it must have felt for everybody else, but I think you communicate that emotion and the nuance of the voice.
Yeah, and you also have to communicate a calmness, I think.
I think that's right. Category 4, love and marriage. How many marriages? Also, how many kids? And is there anything public about these relationships? Shall I just knock it out?
Yeah.
First marriage, Elaine, I don't know how to say her last name, Elaine Kaleli. She was a former Playboy Playmate, and they were married in 1974, divorced in 1981. No kids, but there was this adopted daughter. Nikki is her name.
So she had the daughter from a previous
She had
marriage?
or a previous relationship, yeah.
Okay.
And then Alex was 34 when they married and 41 when they divorced. And it sounded like an amicable divorce. It is worth noting, though, that this marriage and divorce happened before he became host of Jeopardy, and he was sort of hopping from gig to gig, game show to game show, and not making a lot of money. So it does sound like there was actually real financial pressure on the marriage at that time.
Okay.
And then wife number 2, Jean Caravan, they married in 1990. Alex was 50 years old, and they did have 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, Matthew and Emily. And they were together until Alex died at age 80.
Okay. What did she do for a living? I read this.
I saw a few different things. I know at one point she had a flower business.
I thought she was into real estate in New York.
That may be it. I don't think it's in New York. I think it's in LA.
Okay. How did they meet?
That's a good question. I did read this because I read a biography of Trebek. I can't remember. And one thing I did not note is that there's a very large age disparity. She was significantly younger. I think 24 years younger than him.
Okay. That's very Mandela.
Yeah, it is.
Trebek.
It is. So, yeah, quite a large age gap. Here's something I did not know about Alex Trebek, that he was an attractive man.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I see it now, but I don't know. When you're growing up, everybody who's got gray hair is just old.
Yeah.
And I never would have thought of him as like, desirable in an attractive way. And I just hadn't thought about it in years. And so that he was married to a woman who was a Playboy Playmate. And, when he was in Canada and Toronto and Ottawa before that, was described as like one of the city's most eligible bachelors. Like that surprised me. I would not have thought that.
And I think throughout his career, there were people throwing themselves at him. I don't think there was any accusations of infidelity, but I read about that.
I didn't see anything. I think he was quite the recluse. I think he was a family man. I'm not a recluse, but I think he shied away from any advances that happened. In fact, it sounded like a very healthy marriage, the second wife in particular, and even the divorce from the first wife. And then older father, right? I mean, he marries a much younger woman, but he becomes a new dad after he's age 50. And I guess I wanted to ask, do we make of anything of that?
Of becoming an older dad?
Yeah.
Everyone always argues, right, that you don't want to be an older father. And I want to stop all this by just saying I understand how it's not a fair trade, right? Women certainly have biological restrictions that make it much harder to be a parent later in life.
Yeah.
And that's not fair. But the case I hear from friends and peers and stuff of not wanting to be an older father is that you can't get on your knees and play with your children and play ball and go to the games and stuff like that.
Yeah, your energy diminishes and so forth.
David Letterman talks about that a lot.
I think George Clooney does too. I don't know if it's a regret, but I've heard him talk about being an older father.
But you look at somebody like, and Clooney, I think, had kids in his 50s.
Yes.
I mean, these are very fit, capable guys. Do you think they are missing any part of the gift of fatherhood by doing it that late? Asking for myself.
Yeah, sure. I don't think so. I didn't become a father till I was 34 or 35, and it was a part of me that wished we had started earlier for this exact reason, that I would have liked a little bit more energy. At the same time, wasn't ready, And I do think the norms on this are shifting in a healthy direction. And let me put it this way, Amit. I absolutely don't want to be part of any stigma around older fathers or older mothers for that matter.
You mean you don't want to be the recipient of a stigma, or you don't want to do anything to perpetuate that stigma?
Both, but
Okay.
when I said that, I was thinking about perpetuating the stigma. Quite the opposite, if anything. I mean, anybody who is interested in being a parent, I want them to be able to do it whenever they can. There are, as you said, biological realities around this, right?
Sure,
And
but there are also alternative ways of being a parent.
That's true. And those biological realities are harder for women, obviously. But we're talking about dads, I guess. I think you should be able to do it whenever you want to. I do think, and I want science and I want society to accommodate that as much as possible. I also do think one thing that happens when you become a parent is your social life gets completely upended. And some of the people you bond up with are other new parents. If you are in your 50s and you're becoming a new dad, you might not meet a whole lot of other men or women or whatever in a similar age bracket. And I think that plays into the experience of parenting in a big way. Because as I said, your social life gets upended and reorganized around the children's lives.
I think one other thing that I saw Trebek say, because he went into death very peacefully,
Yes.
despite the horrible disease that took his life. But he did say one of the things that he will miss out on is meeting his grandchildren.
Yes, I had that in regrets later. Yeah.
I mean, that is something to consider, I think, if...
It is, but I think the experience of being a dad is life upending, and the experience of being a grandparent, I don't know, but it's just is icing on the top.
Well, there's
great
a bit of a
bonus.
trade-off too, right? Or you're either just not ready, or maybe you run the risk of maybe never meeting your grandchildren. To me, that the latter risk would suck, but it's much better than to have children when you're really not ready.
That's exactly right.
What are we making of the whole Alex Trebek love and marriage thing?
Really good. It gets a high score from me. I saw all three children, his adopted daughter and his children with Jean, all like having great things to say about what a committed and involved father he was. I think he was a little bit of a disciplinarian at times, or at least had rules and believed in boundaries, but I think that's a good thing. I think that's a mark of a good father. And I think he's clear he was committed to it. I think like he made time for his family based on available information, based on what I read in the biography, and based on what I saw the children saying around the time of his death and after his death. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Category 5, net worth.
75 million?
That's what I saw.
I kind of wanted it to be a little higher.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was a
he
great
was
number.
getting towards the end, he was getting 10 million a year from Jeopardy.
75 million is a lot of fucking money.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying when I learned that he was making 10 million a year on Jeopardy, I thought when I finally did the research in this question, it was going to be higher. It's a tremendous amount of money.
It's a tremendous amount of money. I'm very
He doesn't
happy.
need any more. Nobody needs any more.
It feels like almost a little bit uncomfortably high. I mean, he's deeply involved in philanthropy. I will say this, too. It really seems like he manages money well. Like, you get the sense that he's a handyman. He knows how to fix things. And I got a story about that later. Or maybe I got it now. So when he buys a house in L.A., he at some point decides to buy a house next door and fix up one of them, and he rents out the other one to Pete Rose, of all people. So Pete Rose is Alex
Who does
Trebek's-
not manage money well.
Pete Rose, exactly, does not manage money well, was Alex Trebek's tenant. And anytime anything would break, Alex Trebek would come running over with his tools. This is how the man got his exercise, was like by
Running over
around,
to Pete Rose's house to fix the faucet.
or around his own house to fix the faucet. I think he would strap on the tool belt and sweat it out. That's how he got his cardio.
That's how the Diet Coke and Snickers bar was metabolized.
That, according to him.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a feeling a lot of our listeners probably don't even know who Pete Rose was. Baseball player / manager got in trouble for gambling on his own team.
God, do people not know who Pete Rose was? I guess that's true.
I don't think so. He also did at one point, I think, hold some really remarkable hit streaks and records.
Yes, and is famous for not being a part of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. All right. Anyway, that's Pete Rose. Was Alex Trebek's tenant. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, 75 million. I don't know what to say about it other than I'm very happy with it. Seems like a shit ton of money, but also given his work ethic, I'm very good with that number.
Yeah.
But it's a lot.
I mean, he recorded over 8,000 shows of Jeopardy.
Is it desirable?
It's desirable up to an extent. I think that's a conversation that we end up always having.
Yeah.
There is a too much discomfort of your inability to make certain decisions, the way that you have trust issues.
Yeah.
They just come up because you have so much and that people are at it for different ways. And it's really hard to have new deep connections after a certain point. That's where it becomes troublesome. I don't think he is in that category of wealth. He's just in the category of very wealthy celebrity.
Very recognizable. He's on TV all the time, but it's not the kind of fame where there's like a sort of, I don't know, insane attribution of how much power he has.
Yeah.
And which I think maybe is part of the desirability question around net worth, because money is one expression of power, but so is notoriety. It's one thing to have $75 million if you made it as an entrepreneur, or if you made it as a criminal. If you made it, hosting a game show where you're asking, kind of brainy questions to America for 37 years, the representation of fame around that number, I'm pretty okay with. Like the nature of his fame, I guess I'm okay with. Shall we move on?
I think so. I think we covered it. I think we're good with where the money is.
Category 6, Simpsons, Saturday Night Live, or Halls of Fame. This category is a measure of how famous a person is. We include both guest appearances on SNL or The Simpsons, as well as impersonations.
So we have to get the easiest one out of the way.
Oh, the Will Ferrell?
The Will Ferrell on SNL.
Yeah, so good.
Mr. Connery, why don't you pick? It looks like this is my lucky day. I'll take the rapists for 200. That's therapist. That's therapist, not the rapist.
And on the Canadian equivalent of SNL, which I forget what it's called, but Eugene Levy played Trebek.
That's right.
SCTV?
SCTV.
But that doesn't stand for Second City Television.
It doesn't, but it is SCTV.
Okay.
That's right. And he apparently, Trebek said Eugene Levy did a better job. That's fine, though. I don't think Will Ferrell's impersonations are quote-unquote good.
That was just funny.
All right, let's move on to The Simpsons. He also did voice himself on The Simpsons. I had forgotten about this episode. It's called Miracle on Evergreen Terrace. Marge Simpson goes on Jeopardy. She is in negative money. Trebek is trying to get it from her, and she runs away.
Aren't we forgetting something, Marge? You were down $5,200.
But Mr. Trebek...
I asked you before the game if you knew the rules, and you said you did. Judges?
Red Mom!
One other thing I forgot to say about the SNL impersonation, not only did he love it, he said it means you've arrived.
Oh, did he say that?
He actually said that.
Thank you, Alex, for validating our category.
Finally, Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's got one in 1999.
Okay.
So he hit the trifecta.
And let's also not forget something like 8+ Emmys, an Emmy Lifetime Achievement Award. The amount of movies that he played himself or even TV shows, if you look at that list, is overwhelming. I wrote some of them down here. Rain Man, Golden Girls, Cheers. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Beverly Hills 90210, Family Guy. I mean, it's a huge list.
Yeah. So the man's famous.
Yes.
All right. Category 7, over-under. In this category, we look at the generalized life expectancy for the year they were born to see if they beat the house odds and as a measure of grace. So the life expectancy for men in Canada, they give it 1940 to 42. He's born in 1940. It's 63.04 years at birth, and at 1 year, it's 67.04. For whatever reason, Canada reports these after you've made it past a year. I guess back then they were accounting for infant mortality. So anyway, either way, Alex Trebek died at 80, so he's many years over.
But we do this category also to talk about the grace.
Can I say something before you hop on that?
Yeah.
I had it in my head he died young.
I kind of did too.
Right?
Well, because he looks so good.
And I guess maybe that is to your, which is I think where you were going with this as a measure of grace. He looked great.
Yeah. I would have thought if without any data, I would have guessed 65.
Yeah. I was surprised about this. I thought we were going to be much closer. So, and it was pancreatic cancer, and it got him pretty quick.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's what killed Steve Jobs. It's one of the worst kinds of cancer. A good friend of mine lost his brother to that a few years back, and it is absolutely devastatingly hell.
Yeah, I mean, he said I'm at stage 4, and there's no such thing as stage 5.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's, this doesn't look good. And he made a lot of public announcements about this.
Yeah.
And there were stories he would do the show and then go back to his dressing room and just curl up on the floor crying in pain.
Yeah.
I mean, that said, it did happen fairly quick. I don't know, should we make anything about the nature of the death? I've been wondering if this is something we should be talking about more.
I mean, I think we do because we don't want painful deaths. We've kind of learned that. Long, drawn-out, painful deaths, both for you and your loved ones, do not seem to be desirable.
I don't think we're alone in not wanting that.
But the point is we kind of weigh it.
Yeah.
Right? In the whole thing. And you shouldn't, like, it's a little unfair. You shouldn't weigh just the ending.
Yeah. Given that death looks uncomfortable and painful most of the time, my top choice is I don't want too much pain. If I don't get that, then I don't want it to be drawn out. I also don't want it to be violent. So I guess for me, this is like not a bad death necessarily. 80 is a pretty good age. You made it to the over. A little bit young, but not way young. And I don't want to go through pancreatic cancer. I don't want to go through any kind of cancer, but if cancer's going to come along and this is how I'm going to go. He got a chance to say goodbye and write it out to the end. I don't know. It looked not that bad given that no death looks that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I guess the point we're making is the public Alex Trebek that we saw that he presented himself with was extremely graceful.
Yeah, I agree. Let's pause for a word from our sponsor.
Michael, I'm thinking of a book.
Is it a biography?
It is not.
Something in the humor section.
No.
I'm going to need more information. What are you thinking of?
You don't read?
Of course I read. I read all the time. I've got like 3 books on at least.
So you have no guesses?
About what you're reading?
Yes. No, what I'm thinking of.
Oh. What book you're thinking of? Great Gatsby.
This is not a bad guess, but it's not correct. You try me.
What do you mean? I got to think of a book and you need to try and guess what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a book.
Catcher in the Rye.
Motherfucker, how did you do that?
Because I shop at Half Price Books regularly.
That was incredible.
Do you know what? Half Price Books is celebrating 50 years of buying and selling books, movies, and music. Half Price Books has 125 stores, and you can find out more at hpb.com. Was that really correct?
No. But it was more fun to pretend like it was. Thus far, we have been after easily knowable information. At this point in our show, we get to the more introspective questions. This is where we start to take a good guess at what we think it might have been like to be this person. The first of these categories is man in the mirror. What did they think about their own reflection? Ahmed, what do you got?
I tried to think deeply or counterintuitively on this, and I couldn't find it. I think it's just a clean yes.
I agree. What's not to like? And I think that he does look confident. I think he was a handsome man. I think, he had a mustache for a while and then he didn't. And that was exciting for a lot of people and a good smile. So I don't need to make this one problematic. I think both go yes.
Yeah, very linear aging too. Like you look at early pictures of him at 30 and then pictures at like 70 and it just looks okay. Yeah.
It's a good way of putting it. Linear aging. All right, next category, outgoing message. Like Man in the Mirror, we are interested in how they felt about the sound of their own voice when they heard it on an answering machine.
You have reached the voicemail box of...
I'll give you my answer. I said the diction, which was kind of called out in the obituary, is too good. It's basically, I think it's a yes, but I think you could also say that there's a Casey Kasem no, which is when the voice is too valuable to actually put it on an answering machine. I think I'm going yes. What do you got?
I'm going to make a case. What you talked about at the beginning, I think, thing I love about you, number 3, was that he cusses a lot.
Yes.
Right. So there is a Alex Trebek, host of Jeopardy, and there is a real Alex Trebek.
Okay, so let me pause on that real quick then. So I agree with that. And I think we even we the viewer knew that. And I feel like there are some people whose fame we don't distinguish the man in front of the camera or the woman in front of the camera and the man or woman behind the scenes.
Yes.
I think with Alex Trebek, there was almost a conscious, I've got more here, but this is all you're getting. But you knew it. Like the viewer was conscious of the withholding and was okay with it and kind of admired him for it.
Yeah, so here's the question I'm posing. If he's recording the outgoing message, does he do it as the host of Jeopardy or does he say, please leave a fucking message? But he can't. He can't do the latter because who knows who's calling. Yeah. And so given that it's so important for him to maintain this image of the host of Jeopardy and the agents and the advertisers and whoever are calling, I think he just lets the machine do it.
I'm ready to sign off on that. I think
this is not at all to say that he doesn't like his own voice.
That's right. This is not about self-perception so much. It's also about voice consciousness and what it's being used for.
And how much it matters.
How much it matters, yeah. It's sort of a Casey Kasem no in a way.
Yeah.
All right. Next category, regrets, public or private. You want me to start?
Yeah, I don't have a ton here, so I do want you to start.
Okay. I don't have a ton here either. On the public front, we already talked about wanting to have a grandchild. He did joke at one point during Ken Jennings' run that he was spending more time with Ken Jennings than with his wife, but I don't know if that's actually a regret. And the other thing that was sort of show specific, at least on the public side, are you familiar with the term the forest bounce?
I am. I learned it over the last week.
Yeah. Oh, so you want to describe it?
Yeah, it's basically the strategy. So the way Jeopardy is designed and the way most people play is you start in a category and you go all the way down
with the
on
lowest,
a category.
With the lowest dollar value, and then so 200 to
up.
400 to 600 to 800 and so forth.
Yeah, and then the Forrest bounce was there was this guy named Forrest who was a champion, and he just randomly picked categories, but he felt because it gave him an edge because he knew what he was picking.
Yes.
But the other two contestants could not predict what would be next, so they would kind of be psyched out in some way.
Correct. His name is Chuck Forrest. And the other thing about this strategy is it did apparently give you a better chance of landing on the daily double. And if you go back and look at Chuck Forrest's record, he did pretty well. Apparently Trebek hated it. It really pissed him off when people would go out of order.
I saw that.
And I did wonder if he didn't have a regret about this should be the rules of Jeopardy, that you have to go in order. But I don't know, there's not much to be said. So that's all I got on the regret side. I didn't see a whole hell of a lot more. I think on the private side, I've got a little bit more. This has come up quite a few times on the show, but flirtations with acting. Did you see some of his attempts to get the acting roles?
Yeah, I mean, other than the playing himself.
Yes.
There was it an X-Files?
That's the best one, where he and Governor Jesse Ventura, I think before he was governor, played a bad guy. It was like they were called Men in Black, and they were protecting aliens or something. I never saw the episode. But I actually think Alex Trebek would play a good bad guy. I think he could do that well, and he wasn't able to get roles because he was typecast as the host of Jeopardy. I mean, he couldn't do anything but play himself, and he realized that pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I think that's a regret.
And that's kind of what I wonder is the fact that he can't do anything but play himself. There was clearly this voicemail argument for 2 Alex Trebeks.
Yeah.
But I guess he only had to do it 2 days a week. You know, I made the case in Leonard Nimoy with I didn't like the singular association with the character.
Yes.
And Alex Trebek is definitely one of those, that we have a very singular association with him.
No question.
I mean, I don't think he was public about it being a problem. I think, like you said, he wasn't out and about that much outside of the show. He had a very good family life. And as soon as the cameras turned off, he played himself.
Yes.
So I don't see that as much of a regret for him. I am curious, though. So Jeopardy, this version of Jeopardy, launched in 1984.
Correct.
When he was 44 years old. What about all that time leading up to it? We know about the marriage that ended amicably after 7 years. Are there any regrets in that time that you viewed or read about?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, he settles in. Dude, by the way, you know, one thing that hasn't come up yet is how he got into this game show racket in the first place.
It involved Alan Thicke and Lucille Ball.
Correct.
Yes.
Alan Thicke of Growing Pains fame, the dad on Growing Pains, who is sadly not with us.
Yes.
And Lucille Ball, who played, you know, I Love Lucy.
Yeah. And he was roommates with Alan Thicke.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
Alan Thicke is the reason Alex Trebek is with us. One thing I tried to find, because he wasn't just roommates with him. Like Alan Thicke is the man who said, and this is in the biography, said, Alex, you need to move to L.A. Like, there is opportunities galore here. I'll hook you up. He gets a
fellow Canadian, come this way.
Seriously. And Trebek gets a job on some game show. I'm forgetting the name of it. It gets canceled. Alan Thicke hooks him up with a second job. I mean, like, he's really instrumental in getting his career underway. I couldn't find anything about, did they remain friends over the years? I got really curious about this because I would have thought, given that Trebek owes Alan Thicke a debt of gratitude for everything that happened.
As does Leonardo DiCaprio.
How so?
He got his start on Growing Pains.
Oh, right. Fuck. Alan Thicke.
Yeah.
Save that for a future conversation. That's a good question. I don't see it. So in the 70s, he is sort of like beginning to ingratiate himself with Hollywood. Lucille Ball, as you said, recommends him, I think, more than once as a game show host. People clearly see his aptitudes for it. He does talk about trying cocaine once and hating it. Trebek does, that is.
Okay.
He also there was some like weekend getaway thing that a show that he was a part of, that there was like a retreat in Mexico where apparently And there was a fair amount of celebrities at the time. It was the first time he felt like he was like making it in Hollywood. So I don't know. I think that draw is there. I think he sees opportunities for himself. He was a broadcaster, kind of journalist broadcaster in Canada before he got to LA. What exactly is the plan? It's kind of unclear. Are there regrets? I don't think so. I don't think he wants to be a journalist or a newsman. I think he's handsome enough to make it as an actor, but he's not like taking acting classes necessarily. This game show host thing seems to be a destiny
His calling.
Yeah. So I don't see the regret.
Yeah, I just saw a lot of persistence, a lot of trial of new game show formats that he did for other people. They failed and he kept going and he kept persisting. And eventually Lucille Ball told Merv Griffin that you should have Alex Trebek host this Jeopardy that you're restarting in 1984.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history. But I do want to point this out.
Yeah.
So this is not a regret, but do you remember the Nelson Mandela conversation we had about importance? And you said something to the effect of, well, I'm 43 years old. Who knows if that ship has sailed?
Yes.
Alex Trebek started hosting Jeopardy at 44. I'm not just saying that as inspiration for you, Michael, is that you even said in the Kenny Rogers episode that Kenny Rogers' trajectory started at like age 38. And you used Bryan Cranston as another example. I love these examples, maybe just because I'm 44, but I love the never too late example.
I agree. I got one more in the regret that I feel like we have to talk about. The Jeopardy successor. Who's going to take over the reins?
He didn't know, though.
No, but I speculate on this as a regret. He didn't have a better plan for it because nobody can mentor the successor. I was trying to think of other handing over of hosts, right? For whatever reason, I was
Tonight Show, definitely.
Tonight Show's a good example, I suppose. I was thinking about The Daily Show. I like Trevor Noah, but I haven't really watched much since Jon Stewart left.
Yeah, it lost me.
Yeah. What's another example I was thinking about?
I can't think of it in terms of television, but CEOs do it all the time.
Yeah, well, sure. I guess that my point is that Trebek knows the success of the program, of Jeopardy, and he knows that this is an institution in American television and around the world, for Christ's sakes. Didn't he have kind of a responsibility to train the successor? I kind of want that of him, and I wonder if he didn't think about that. I mean, there were names thrown. There was a lot of names thrown out, and right now they don't even really have a permanent host. They're rotating duties.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, there's all kinds of controversy and messiness that happened. Did you follow what happened with this guy Mike Richards?
Mm-mm.
There's a journalist at The Ringer, a woman named Claire McNeil, who wrote a book all about Jeopardy, and
I read one of her articles.
Yeah, it's really good. And she was up to speed on who this guy Mike Richards was, who there was a process for who was going to be Alex Trebek's successor. And he ends up nominating himself, kind of. There's some like behind the scenes shenanigans. But the guy also had a podcast. And if you go back and listen to it, this guy sounds like not a great guy. There's some real sexism coming out. There's some real like immaturity coming out. And because of her reporting, he ended up having to actually step away from that role. There was so much negative blowback. Anyway, I feel like if you are at the helm of something, like you have a responsibility to figure out who's going to follow you. Even if cancer comes on kind of fast and you don't know that, when and how you're going to die. I don't know. He's 80. He's in the late 70s anyway. He knew he was like maybe heading towards retirement. I feel like it could have been a regret.
What's the argument against for not naming your successor?
I don't know. I mean, it's such a like neutral place too to like celebrate intellectualism. I feel like we don't have enough of that in American culture, right? Quite the opposite. We live in an anti-intellectual culture, and Jeopardy stands in the face of that. And Alex Trebek like embodies that. Thing number one was curiosity. So there's a part of me that feels like, yeah, you have an obligation to find the next person who represents what it means to celebrate intelligence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
And maybe I'm mad at him.
Yeah, I think you are. And maybe if he knew you were mad at him and he knew that you times several million people could potentially be mad at him for it, that could be a regret.
All right, next category. Good dreams, bad dreams. Does this person have a haunted look in the eye? Is there something that suggests turmoil, inner demons, or unresolved trauma?
Absolutely. The man was like a lifelong insomniac.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come out of nowhere. I don't think that's completely... I mean, maybe it can be completely genetic. But there's a lot of speculation, a lot of unanswered questions. And insomnia is miserable.
Yes.
I have experienced it in bouts. It is miserable. So I'm saying horrible dreams.
I agree, but I want to talk about this look in the eye thing.
Okay.
I see something.
You do?
I do. I don't know what it is. And maybe it's a little bit of the condescendingness that comes when a contestant gives the wrong answer. There's a little bit of like sharpness there. I don't think the guy is nasty necessarily, but I see something here. I see something.
It's interesting because I said in my Malkovich moment that he had this ability just at a time to turn on the eyes and let you spill out the rest of the answer. But what you're saying is just the constant look. I mean, there may have been something there.
His parents did split at a young age. His father was an alcoholic, it sounds like. I think that there's a lot of self-determination in his story. I think that there's also this reserved quality. But yeah, man, I don't know what it is. It's not a strong one. It was a slight bad dreams if you remove the insomnia from it. But yeah, I see something here.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like there's so much knowledge and so much disparate knowledge going through his head by reading all these clues every day. So, right, 10 episodes over 2 days, right? Yes. 8,000 over the course of time. So all this knowledge and all these facts, they all pass through him. And he said that he could typically answer about 2/3 of them, right? But I don't know, you just know this many facts. I wonder if your brain just starts to move into directions of looking for patterns where patterns aren't there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to turn off your mind with that much knowledge in just all across the board.
But do you see that too? Or
do I see the look?
Yeah.
I need to look at, I didn't, but I'll take a closer look.
All right, then.
But I did see the insomnia. And to me, like, that's
horrible dreams.
That's horrible dreams. Because it is. Like, if you don't fall asleep well, and insomnia dreams are bad, typically.
Second to last category, cocktail, coffee, or cannabis. This is where we ask, which one would we most want to do with our dead celebrity? It's maybe a question of what kind of drug sounds like the most fun, or another philosophy is that a particular kind of drug might allow us access to a part of them that we're most curious about. Amit, what do you have?
Cannabis. And I'll tell you why. So I don't think there's a lot of access problems with Trebek. Because as they say, like, as soon as the show wasn't airing, he was self-deprecating, he was making jokes, he was cussing. As you said, I don't think it takes that much to get access to the other part. What I'm saying is what I said about the insomnia, that maybe it's just all this knowledge and this like pattern seeking and stuff that he just overdosed on it. With some cannabis, he may be able to put it together. And I'm not saying that's my role with him, but with as much knowledge that is stored inside of him, I want to kind of get his, like, Yuval Harari's History of the World through Alex Trebek.
Author of Sapiens?
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know how he sees how we got to this point and where we're going.
I mean, do you consider him an intellectual? Or is he just promoting intellectualism? Because I think there's no question he's doing that. This is beyond trivia.
I think that's something that's debated, and that's like in, the SNL impersonation. I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he is, and I think you can become an intellectual, right? It's not necessarily a nature thing.
Yeah.
And I just think by the nature of his job, in order to do it as well as he did, he became an intellectual.
Yeah. It's good. I like that answer. Shall I go?
Yes.
So usually when I sense intelligence, I go coffee, because I want to learn from people. But I actually went cocktail here for a couple reasons. One is that I think the sense of humor is there, actually. And I want to hang out and have a drink and laugh with them. Not smoke a joint, but actually like have a drink and laugh in that kind of like light buzz and kind of way. But I also do still have some real questions about, like, I want to get inside a little bit more. And my mechanism for that usually is a drink, a nice stiff drink. And I think it'd probably be like a whiskey sour or something, maybe scotch and soda. It should be a little bit classy, because he's a dapper man. Yeah. I have my suspicions about what's really going on inside. And I, for what it's worth, admire his boundaries in terms of how much he did and did not let the public in. I think the man comes across incredibly balanced. I think it's something very admirable about him. But everybody's got a secret inside somewhere. And I'd like to find out what his are. I assume there's more than one. I said are.
Yes. I want to say something about what you led off with, which was the humor. So some of the things when they went to commercial break and Trebek used to talk to the audience and they would throw questions at him and a lot of them were repeat.
Yeah.
But I read some of the funnier things that he said, that often he was asked, how do you prepare for each show? And an answer he used to like to give would he'd say, I drink.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then they'd ask, who should succeed you as host? And he said, Betty White.
Yeah, I saw that. One of my favorite ones, somebody said, boxers or briefs? And he paused and said, thong. Which coming with that suit is just great. Well, shit. All right. I think we're here. The Vanderbeek, named after James Vanderbeek, who famously said in Varsity Blues,
I don't want your life.
Ahmed, based on everything we've talked about, Alex Trebek's life, do you want it?
I don't like the insomnia. That sucks.
Yeah.
I don't like dying from pancreatic cancer, but it sounds like he managed that as lucky as you can, given the horror of that illness. Where I kind of struggle a little bit, though, is the meaning, the what's it all for. But I think I landed on it, and I think what we kind of talked about with knowledge, putting intellectualism out into an accessible part of the world and make it entertaining. I think there's tremendous virtue in that. You just think about being a game show host. Would I want to be a game show host and that's my life's work? I mean, I don't think so, but I don't think he was that. I think he was a purveyor of knowledge and one who celebrated it and made it entertaining and accessible. When we first met, do you remember who I worked for?
You were at Wikipedia at the time?
Yes, at the Wikimedia Foundation that manages Wikipedia. Also synonymous with knowledge, but somehow being cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Trebek was. You said we're gravitating towards anti-intellectualism.
Yes.
He didn't. He made it entertaining. He made it constant and broadly appealing. And I think there's meaning in that. Everything we said about the family sounds great. There's no visible scandalous or negative things. I didn't hear a lot about the friendships. There's a little concern about, maybe he and Alan Thicke separated. But all of it together, yes. I want your life, Alex Trebek.
I mean, that's basically where I'm at. I mean, I do think the family life is good. I do want to see grandkids. I do, but that's icing on the top. I think that the thing that I came out of the gate with, curiosity, both a promoter of it and an embodiment of it. I mean, sometimes I feel like the answer to all of life's problems is captured in that word. That whatever else you're going through at any point in life, when you find and locate and nurture your inner curiosity, like you are on the right track. That is like the whole fucking ball game for what life is all about. I guess there's a little bit of a question in my mind about Jeopardy as a representation of intellectualism. The relationship between trivial knowledge and true knowledge, right? Wisdom even, not just information, but lessons.
Wisdom's a good word.
Yeah. I think Jeopardy comes as close to anything as promoting that in an almost subversive way, because it is built around this very tight structure of we're going to bang through these questions really fast. And there's a dramatic arc from Jeopardy to Double Jeopardy to Final Jeopardy. And I think that what it means to host anything is, I heard Ira Glass say this once, it's, you're throwing a party. To host is to throw a party. And I think he's throwing a party. Maybe they'll find somebody else to take the helm, and maybe that person will have resonance with a mass audience. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if this game show dies in the next few years because he just did it so goddamn well. I was a pretty strong yes, even though I was trying to hold myself back. I don't even really see the case for the no. I guess the biggest case for the no on the Vanderbeek here is that I don't want to be smug.
Perceived as smug even.
Correct. And I think that's why the second thing I love about him is that he said fuck a lot.
Because he wanted to make sure people knew that.
Goddamn right, so hell yeah, I want this life. I mean, I think a resounding yes, I want your life, Alex Trebek.
You Canada lover, you. My applause more.
It is the Canada thing.
So who's going to take us out? I kind of want to see you do it. Do you think you can do it?
Yeah, I think so.
Michael, you've arrived at the pearly gates. You are Alex Trebek. You are meeting St. Peter, the proxy for the Unitarian afterlife. Make your case.
I don't have to do this in the form of a question, do I? St. Peter, Alex here. Who, by the way, I am a lifelong Catholic. I'd like to keep this as simple as possible. What I'm known for, what I did with my life, was I was a lifelong learner. That started at a very young age, and it carried through into adulthood. And eventually I was given an opportunity to host a show. The point of it was to demonstrate the breadth of knowledge that humankind has discovered and is exploring. I was there to help people see what it looks like and what it feels like to be smart and to strive to be smarter. And that is a great thing. Being curious and leading a life of exploration in whatever knowledge domain it may be is enriching, it's empowering, and it may be the whole reason that we're here. And I was there to promote that both in who I was as a man, who I was in my family, who I was on television for 37 years. I tried to do it with grace, I tried to do it with humor, and I tried to do it with humility. And for that, please let me in. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Famous and Gravy. If you're enjoying our show, please go to Apple Podcasts to rate and review us. It really does help new listeners to find the show. We would love to see you on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @FamousAndGravy. We've got lots of fun stuff there on our Twitter feed. Also, please sign up for our newsletter on our website, famousandgravy.com. Famous and Gravy was created by Amit Kapoor and me, Michael Osborne. This episode was produced by Morgan Honecker. Original theme music by Kevin Strang. And thanks also to our sponsor, Half Price Books. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.